It's Thursday, 30th of December, 2021. This evening's reaction doubleheader. We go over our double festive defeats as Poole crashed Huddersfield on Boxing Day and last night at Bloomfield Road to the Teessiders. I'm John Aspinall. This is the Teessiders podcast. Match reaction shows Huddersfield 3, Blackpool 2, and Blackpool 2, Middlesbrough 1. Tradition. Well, good evening, everybody, on a Thursday evening, 30th of December. It's hard to know what day it is. Welcome, everybody, on the stream. Thanks for joining us. Welcome, Phil, Daz, Andy, Alex. Welcome, Sean, Joe, and Mitch. Everyone's unmuted, and it was an almost flawless introduction. So, go me. You
got the scores the wrong way round.
Did I?
Yeah, you said Blackpool
Huddersfield 3-2. Yeah, it was 2-1, wasn't it? It was 1-2. Oh well, nearly there. I'll get one right one day.
8 minus.
Yes, David. Wish it was Poole 2, Boro 1. It's hard to compute two scores when you're a man, especially when you've been drinking some of this, an IPA. What are you on there, Mitch?
I am on the Hipster Deluxe Brutoon Loose Cannon.
Oh, wow.
I actually bought in Peterhead in Scotland when I was on holiday, and I've been saving it since because it's very nice.
Sean's got a knowing hipster nod there.
Yeah.
Has he done a job on you there?
And I've got nothing. I've literally got nothing here. I've just realised I have no drink whatsoever, so I'll probably run away in about 20 minutes.
Are you fully recovered now, Sean? Are you?
Yes,
I am.
I am. Yes, I've got the Boro fan-itis now, which I'll have the lurch of for the next few months, I think. But we'll get over that one.
Anyone any good Christmas presents? We have just had the Christmas period, Blackpool related or otherwise.
I'll go hipster. I got a Brazilian Serie A Atletico Mineiro top from last season, which was an anniversary top that has like a map of Brazil on it, and it's just a very cool football shirt. So that's what I got.
I noticed, Sean, on your backdrop.
I know.
Hipster pictures up.
Hipster pictures. Yeah, I don't know how I point. Johan Cruyff somewhere. He's there. I've got Maradona like there. You know, Scottish references and all that. I've got a map of Argentinian football top flight clubs. I have Dave, the grime artist. I have Nas, a 90s American rapper.
A burger.
No, that's actually 2 F1 cars. It's a McLaren, but
I thought it was a burger, to be honest. Yeah. I thought that was a very niche reference to Emerson Royale, or as it's known in France, the Emerson Royale with cheese.
So,
Why did they call it that, Joe?
Metric
because
system.
of he knows the metric system.
I got an interesting present. My dad always gets me a joke present. He gives me money and a joke present. And this year's joke present was something I've been really after for a long
ticket
time.
to Preston North End?
No, I've already got toilet paper. It was a President Donald Trump salt and pepper shakers. Great. Just what I always wanted, Dad. Cheers.
Well, I'm not sure if this is hipster or just, something that only I would want in the world. But I got a cardboard build your own East German city from where you can recreate the magnificence of the pre-Berlin Wall coming down DDR. So I'll be whiling away the hours doing that later.
What every little boy wants to unwrap from Father Christmas on Christmas Day. I'll just show you mine before we get onto the show. You probably can't see it. You can see the text
Cool.
there. Ember.
Ember.
That there, gents, and on the audio pod, I'm showing a camera and mug with Ember on it. That is a £100 plus mug. £100 plus. It comes with an app. and it controls the temperature of your
It
coffee.
keeps your brew warm.
It is brilliant.
Oh, wow.
It's an absolute life changer, this. For anyone who's fickle like me about the temperature of the tea or the coffee particularly, I'm always going back to the microwave and reheating mine. But this thing keeps it a constant temperature, and you can actually control the temperature there if you want it to go up and down.
I don't know if the mug's the one in your hand or if it's the one that's bought it, to be quite honest.
It was actually Sean, as Joe's dad just gives him money. My mum just gives me money. So I say, right, well, I'll buy myself something that I really want and you just pay for it. So she technically bought it for me, but I bought it myself on Amazon, gave it her and she mapped it up. But it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer.
That £100 mug, my granddad's got something similar to that. It's called a flask. Great.
One of them, Joe.
I'm delighted for you.
You can't have it open and drink it from a flask. Can you control the temperature from a smartphone? I don't think so.
So, Huddersfield.
So, yes, that was the preamble. Huddersfield away. The first thing we have to say, A, huge queue to get in. We just got in the end. But B, I made my way to the front with my son, my brother, his son, in the kind of the family stand. Right at the front to the left, pretty much. And who was right in front of me, purely by chance, with a hat on, so I didn't recognise him.
Was it Tim Fielding?
No, it wasn't Tim Fielding.
Oh, it was me. There we are.
It was him. It was him. And so we had a good chat, didn't we, Mitch? So it's like we're brothers at the moment. The amount of times we've been meeting, it's like waiting for a bus, isn't it? We don't see each other for real for a year, and then twice in a week.
Checking you're not next door. Checking you're in the room next door.
But what a day! What a game to be stood together for the first time. But we'll come on to that. I think we all know what we're going to talk about. Right, the lineup for Huddersfield away. Let's just have a quick look. Grimshaw, Gabriel, Ekpiteta, Gretson, Husband, Dougal, Carey, Bowler, Anderson, Yates, and Medine. What did we all think of this when we saw it? I was reasonably happy. Let's come to you first, Joe.
Obviously, hindsight's a fine thing, but Matt can actually be a judge of this because I saw him knocking about before the game. We were both pretty happy with it, and as it turned out, to a certain point in the game, it worked bloody brilliantly. And I'd argue, as far as best teams go, for me, that's pretty damn close. I think that was arguably, again, I say, up to a certain point, probably our best display of the season. I thought Sonny Carey in the middle with Dougal was a brave move. Obviously, Wintle being out with an injury or COVID, I thought he filled the gap brilliantly, and it's absolutely gutting. I think it just got announced on Twitter by himself that he's done his metatarsal and looking at about 6 to 8 weeks out. So typical, innit? We stumble across our best formation, and then one of the players gets injured, out for a couple of months.
So, Sean, when you saw that lineup there, how did you think we'd set up formation-wise, and how did you think we were going to address the game with that formation and team?
Yeah, I thought it was 4-4-2. I think my initial reaction, thinking the Patreon chat, was just it looked very fun. It just looked exciting, and it looked like we were going for a game and sort of going for that free-flowing attacking play, and against a side that do that quite happily themselves. You knew that it was going to be an exciting game. And that's all. We have to play open. I think we have to take gambles as a side because, as we'll come on to, I don't think particularly recent weeks we've really coped well with sustained pressure of our back line, and that sort of came to the fore. And our best form of defence has always been attack for me. I think when we're pressing high and we're forcing turnovers high up the park, and when you've got so many good technical players in the side like that, then that's your best bet of winning. So I was really impressed with the side, to be honest, and I was excited to see how Sonny Carey would get on in central midfield, and it was a nice one, and obviously Daniel Gretson as well, which it's just nice to see him get a game because he from post match anyway, at least he he was saying how hard he's worked and how professional he's been in the background. And that it's just nice that someone like that gets rewarded with a start, as much as it was a little bit needs must.
Yeah. Mitch, over to you then. A, were you happy with that lineup? And B, talk us through the opening goal from Jezza.
Yeah, no, I mean, I put on Twitter some words to the effect of I flipping love that lineup. And I think what was really nice to see that we'd sort of been forced to take the chance of playing Carey in a 4-4-2. I think it's something that Critchley probably didn't really want to do, but needs must, and it worked. And I think that was really nice to see. First goal, I mean, it was just so quick, wasn't it? I mean, as I remember it, Bowler nicked the ball off someone, ran forward. And as I remembered it at the ground, he sort of knocked it to Yates, and Yates just passed it into the corner. But when I watched it back, it was actually a really, really good finish from Jerry, because he was further out than it looked from the angle where we were stood. He was kind of on the edge of the box, and he sort of curled it / passed it into the only little bit of the goal that the keeper couldn't reach. It was a lovely finish, and it was kind of reminiscent of the kind of goals he was scoring when he was on that streak of form in the run-in last year. Really nice to see. After his goal against Peterborough was really quite scruffy. It was a bit lucky. That was a real sort of classic Yates goal. So it was good to see. And it was also, again, as we talked about last week, it was good to see Bowler do the simple thing, pick it up, run it, and give it to the player in front of him rather than overcomplicating it.
I think since we've been slagging him off for his end product, he seems to have changed his game, doesn't he?
He's got us on his iPhone on repeat. Every time he thinks about going for a run, and he just hears Sean in his head. Pass it quickly.
I was going to say, it reminded me of his assist for Lavery at Millwall away. It's sort of the weight of pass through the middle. And I like that Yates's run sort of forced him to play that eye through the needle pass rather than him coming out wide and playing a simpler ball. He sort of forced him into that difficult pass, and it's nice to see him doing that. And yeah, again, it seems to be, because Critchley mentioned about trying to get some innovation in his game and variety in his game, and they've been trying to work one-to-one quite closely with him, and you're seeing the benefits of that. I think he's obviously, we'll come on later on, but when he came on against Boro, he did similar as well.
Those types of finishes where you hit it hard and low, directing a cut, it's really hard to do, isn't it? You know, if anyone's ever played football, 11-a-side, 5-a-side, whatever, it's something I could never do. Just drill it hard and low. It's a skill I'm really jealous of, and it's something Yates is very good at. It's great to see him back to his kind of best. But Mitch, we've gone 1-0 up, and just as we've more or less finished hugging each other, they've gone down the other end and equalised straight away with what can only be described as a bullet header. Very disappointing to concede so early. So a minute later.
Yeah, it was. But I suppose I think the thing for this was Gretterson looked like he really just got ploughed out the way by their lad, and he looked as if it was a bit of a wake-up call for him, a bit like sort of welcome back to proper football. He looked kind of dazed when he got up, and it was a very simple goal, as I remember. It was kind of a ball out to the right or left, can't remember which flank it was, just that kind of Beckham cross cut in from quite deep. And their lad just had a complete run on it. Gretterson seemed to lose where he was, and it was like he wasn't there, and just planted it in the goal. And it was gutting. But I suppose the thing is about a goal that early is you kind of, compared to, I mean, we'll obviously get onto Boro, but compared to like a really late goal, you always just sort of think, well, we're back where we were. You know, it's like we're back at kickoff now. And it was good how we reacted to that goal by kind of getting back on it again and going at them again.
Sean, thoughts on the goal? Could it have been preventable? Yet another goal coming from across from the wings, and poor defending maybe.
Yeah, I thought perhaps stop the cross, but I just thought it was a perfect run, and the cross kind of met him at the perfect time, and his momentum took him right through. I thought it was a brilliant header, and I think
if you're actually lifted the goal up, didn't it? It was
if you're on your because of where because our defender, who regardless of who it is, isn't going to have the same momentum that striker is going to have. So he's either going to bury the header in the top corner, or he's going to bury the centre half into bloody hospital. So because of the momentum of it, so it's like Gretson either puts himself in the way. I think he could probably lost his position a sense a bit, but I think even if he'd have been in the right position, I think he'd have probably buried the header anyway. To be honest.
Joe, you back with us?
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing, obviously. Lead only lasting 2 minutes, but the cross, it was a great crossing from Toffolo, and I think it was Ward, wasn't it, with the header? Yeah. Now you can do about that. Maybe Gretson could have got a bit more touch type, but like you say, a bit more momentum with the run, and it's a decent header. But yeah, what a start to the game. You could tell we were going to be in for a decent affair. It wasn't going to be a ball fest. So yeah,
we've had a few too many of them recently.
Disappointing we just couldn't hold out a little bit longer.
Humdinger, I think you can describe that first half as. Mitch, got to come to you for the second goal. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. Great work from Keshi, sort of dancing around the defenders, clips a ball. It was kind of a hopeful ball almost into the box, wasn't it? And a towering header from Big Gaz. And if you watch it on the replay, you don't appreciate how good it was live because it was down the other end. But when I saw the replay, I was like, Christ, how has he actually got that in from his body position?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the move, it was a great downward header. It was really quite remarkable how he managed to get that ball down from the position he'd sort of jumped in. He was kind of almost jumping backwards, and to get the ball to go down from that, he kind of naturally would loop up, but he did really well with that. But as we said at the game, he actually started the move. He did one of his kind of, come deep, and when he plays that little bit of football, when he quite slowly does a little skill or a little trick in the centre circle, a little bit of a shimmy, and sort of passes it the other way, sort of looks one way and then slowly passes it the other way, and then he just, we played it round really quite nicely with some nice football, ends up with Keshi, and he just kind of sauntered very slowly towards the far post in that way he does. I mean, he enrages some people for doing that, but he does lose. He does avoid getting marked by dropping deep and then wandering as if he's got absolutely no intent at all into the box, and somehow doesn't get picked up because he's come so late or moved so slowly. And yeah, I don't know if it's a hopeful ball by Kesh. I thought it was quite a good ball by Kesh. And just an absolute, I mean, that is my perfect goal, a cross in and a towering header at the far post, because I don't know, I'm old fashioned or whatever. I just love it because it's actually quite rare to see. You see all the time, you see sort of, particularly on telly, you see, half volleys from 25 yards and the way sort of Premier League football is now, 20 pass moves and lovely one-touch football. But actually a cross and a thumping header is something that's becoming increasingly rare. So it was lovely to see, and we celebrated in fine style.
Oh, we certainly did, didn't we? There's a video knocking around. There's video knocking around of me and Mitch going, "It's Medine, it's Medine." I'll have to dig it out and I'll put it on our channel. It's not gone on the Twitter feed yet, but I will dig that out. But yeah, just going back to what you've said there, Mitch, that bullet header from Ward, I was like secretly thinking, "Oh, I wish we'd have scored that," because it was a bloody good goal. It was a really old-fashioned bullet header and taking the net off its stanchion. It's always good to see. But Sean, we're talking about headers. I think it'd be a bit remiss of us to not talk about this. What Andy Porter's just mentioned, Keshi's headed miss and 2-1 after Gaz took on 3 defenders and took them out of the game. It was shocking. It was a really bad miss, and I was so sure when I saw him going up that header. I thought he's in the middle of the goal, perfect height, perfect weight. He has to score. And somehow he's put it wide.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I get my Gary Medine did something good thing in here, just so everyone doesn't think I just purely hate Medine. All right, so the best part of his goal was like Mitch said, his initial bring down and the flick over the midfielder's head. He brought it down with one touch and then he flicked it over the midfielder's head and opened up so much space for Keshi. And it's techie Gary. That's what I like. I like techie Gary when he gets to show off his skills, and he's not just this like hopeful lump up top to Gary Medine because it's lazy. When we're lazy with Medine, it's frustrating. But when we play like that with Medine, it's great. And like you say, he took the players out of the game for Keshi's header. I think not necessarily at the time. I was like, how's he not scored that? But I think he's just got to hit the target. I think if he'd hit the target and the keeper had saved it, or if it had gone into the keeper's hands, I'm like, do you know what? Fair enough, because he's on the lean. He's not exactly the most proficient player in the head, but in the air. But to head it wide in that position is unforgivable. But yeah, it is what it is, isn't it now? But it was very frustrating.
Joe, Steve Hutchins just said we go 3-1 up and you think we're home and dry. That's exactly what was in my head at the time. Penny for your thoughts at that moment. Or not.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Yeah, like you say, I mean, I'm not going to dig any players out because I genuinely think that this was probably our best performance of the season. I mean, regardless of the result, I still think it's probably the best that we've played this season.
That first half, we were just superb.
Oh, absolutely superb, like you say. It's very difficult for me to say should he have done better with the header. Yeah, probably, but the fact that it was down the other end, I couldn't get a great view of it. So, I've not watched the replay because I'll be honest, I'm still too gutted. To be honest, It's like you get one kick in the stomach on Boxing Day and a right kick in the knackers yesterday. It seems to be never ending at the minute. To jump slightly ahead to the big incident of the game. I'm glad that we're covering both games because I wanted to mention this part. Obviously, the sending off that changed the game massively. The 2 yellow cards, seen them back. The first one, he slid in and he's just mistimed it. There were no malice in it. Probably is a yellow card. I'm still pretty certain the second yellow card, their fellas made a right meal of it. It's still a foul. What usually happens?
Let's just go back to the first one.
Oh, man, yeah, go for it.
The first challenge. I don't think he needed to make that tackle at all. It was a rush of blood to the head, and it's something. It's in his game, isn't it, Gabriel? And
yeah.
Is it something that can be coached out of him?
No, I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair because I think what on his debut he was a bit rash, and then since then I think he's been pretty measured. It's just
I think
it was. I struggle. To be honest, I was pissed off with Bowler for a large extent of the first half because of the lack of sort of defensive sort of tracking back. You look at Keshi's support of Husband on the left-hand side. I don't think that was as evident on the right-hand side, but that's what we get with Bowler. So it's hard to. I can't really say anything about Bowler because it's probably been instructed to just leave it be, but it didn't help him at all.
The thing is if any player in our team is going to make that sort of last-ditch sliding tackle, wet pitch and sort of slide across and skid in and take the ball off the toes of someone, it's going to be Gabriel, and we're all going to stand up and go, hey, and then we're going to sing that terrible Jordan Gabriel song, and everyone's going to absolutely love him for that. And at the same time, when a player plays like that, who is absolutely, no player is going to judge every tackle spot on. No player is going to get, the number of tackles you go in for over the course of a season. If you're going in that wholehearted way, if you're throwing yourself in, if you go into ground, it's going to go wrong every now and again. And it was a daft challenge. It was so late.
I just don't think he needed to make a challenge there at all. That's what kind of got me. That's what annoyed me. It was
so late that I hadn't actually noticed he'd made the challenge because they'd put the ball in and I'd followed the ball across because they had quite a good effort. Followed the ball across. Whatever happened had happened in the box, and then the ref blew and I looked across. What's he blowing for there? And then their lads in a heap tangled up with Gabriel, and I was like, and I had to deduce that Gabriel had made a challenge because the ball had gone and my attention had gone. It was daft, but like I say, it is sort of in his game, but in a way that's also what makes Gabriel, is the fact that he makes those risks. He takes those challenges. He puts himself there where other players might sort of shadow and step away from it.
John, can you bring up them two previous comments that you just had at the bottom of the screen?
Which one?
One was from, I think,
One's
was
Pete,
it
I think.
David Coleman? David Coleman.
That
yeah.
bowler. Don't forget, bowler was fouled a couple of times.
Fouled a couple of times, just seconds before the second yellow, and the ref gave nothing. That's what I wanted to bring up. Now, in the first half, there was a very long stoppage in which Tom Lees got a bad head injury, and the referee played on. He didn't stop play. Now, obviously, letter of the law, for a bad head injury, you're supposed to stop play. And quite rightly, Huddersfield Town fans were quite apoplectic at it. They were very, very angry. That's understandable, because we could have played on, scored a goal, a bad letter of the law.
Well, we nearly did.
Play.
We nearly did, didn't we?
Yeah,
Gabriel nearly scored. Yeah.
Now, my theory here is because the referee dropped such a huge bollock, he favoured them big time second half. Definitely. There were so many times Carey, Bowler, and especially Anderson were fouled just at the edge of the box while we're on the attack, and the referee just waved play on. It was unbelievable. And when Gabriel did that second foul, was it a foul? Probably. If that's one of our players that gets fouled, it's usually, when a player's on a yellow card, it's usually, oh, you do that again.
One more chance.
Yeah, exactly.
It was
I know it's probably
Critchley said, didn't he?
Conspiracy theories, but I just think that the referee, maybe unconsciously, favoured them because of what went on in the first half.
I absolutely agree with that, Joe. I think that's a great point.
I think it's the thing with referees at the moment that I'm seeing, I think, is across the board really, is that they're the problem is that they're refereeing games in phases, and like the 20 minutes they'll let things go, 20 minutes then they'll pull everything up, and it's like, but then when they go back and like if we pull up an incident, they'll go, well, what we did in this game was we just played the advantage and we tried to keep the flow of the game going, because they can look to that spell of the game and use that as an excuse. But it's like, it's when it's every 20 minutes they're changing the way completely that they're refereeing a game based on the tempo of the game at that point in time. As soon as the game started to slow down a bit in the 25th minute at Huddersfield for about 20 minutes, he started pulling things up and keeping with that pace of the game. But when the tempo was so fast at the start, he was letting everything go. And it's like, you can't do that. You can't referee based on how the tempo of the two teams are playing. It's about consistency throughout the 90 minutes, and there's no consistency, and that's the issue. Because I'm not someone that sort of nitpicks individual incidents and goes, well, that was a foul, blah blah blah, because I find it pointless. We go around in circles. But when you're generally refereeing a game in completely different tempos, it's just bizarre to me, and how you can defend that. And every single official is doing that at the moment.
I refed Eddie's under-9s teams in a friendly 2 days ago, and I showed great consistency in allowing all the foul throws stand, which was like every single fucking one. It's hilarious. You want a bit of a laugh? Go watch under-8s and under-9s taking throw-ins.
Oh, I want to say,
in 10 years' time,
a coach that could change that.
In 10 years' time, we're going to have, we're going to be watching England play, and going, why can none of these kids take a throw-in? Why has this become so endemic in the English game, this inability to take a throw-in? And they're going to say, well, it's going to go down to the coaching. You've got to look at grassroots level, and you're going to sit there and think.
I like the fact, Mitch, that you're sort of implying that I'm going to be coaching not one, but a group of former England full internationals.
I have no doubt about it, John.
I want to blow my own trumpet or anything.
Sorry, can I just say before we move on, I wanted to point out the commentary on iFollow of the general game and Jordan Gabriel incident. Now, I'm not one to pick at commentators and stuff, because I really can't be arsed, and I think it's a very tough job. I think when you try and do it yourself, as we've tried to do on the drink-alongs, it's a much harder job than you realise. But the Steve Ayres on co-commentary was, quite frankly, appalling. The way that he essentially had a premeditated notion about Jordan Gabriel and James Husband, and took every individual opportunity to dig his heels in that point. And he kept going on about Husband being rash every 5 minutes. Husband would perfectly time a tackle and go, well, one of these are going to go wrong. One of these are going to go wrong. And then when Jordan Gabriel was doing it, he went, that's a pathetic performance. It's embarrassing. It's disgraceful performance from Jordan Gabriel. And he didn't shut up until full time. And he was still going on about Jordan Gabriel. And it was bizarre. And I was getting more and more angry as it went on. Now, he was in Joey Barton's coaching staff at Fleetwood, which says it all, and he's not had a job since, which also says it all to me. But I found that absolutely disgraceful. I genuinely, I thought the guy was an absolute joke, and I hope I never have to hear him commentate again.
I did notice a lot of what Steve's just put up there. There were some comments about Steve Ayres and AVFTT. There was a bit of furore.
It was just pathetic. It was really so unnecessary.
Who is he? Who is he? I've never heard of him.
Exactly. He's like an ex-coach. I think he's ex-footballer or something. But I mean, I'd never heard of him, but he's probably past my time. But
were they on BBC Leeds?
No. It was Lanks. It was Lanks.
Was it him and Chizzy?
Yeah. So it was like, but it was just, it was so unnecessary. The guy, Gabriel's made a little error of judgment at the end of the day in one football match, and he was going on as if Gabriel's cost his team. And I can imagine, like, if you're like his family member or you're someone listening to this guy just berate your family member for 90 minutes, I'd be fuming listening to that. I was half ready to throw bloody shoe at the TV at one point because it was just getting really unnecessarily personal. It was bizarre.
Sounds like some fans on twitter.com.
Well, that's what it was. It was bizarre. It was genuinely bizarre. I've never heard anything like it.
Someone's banging at my door. Manager.
I'm just looking him up now. Yeah. Formerly a first-team coach at Fleetwood Town. There you go.
Big time.
Yeah. But it was just like he clearly understood the game, and he was made good points at times. But then it was just so weird. It was just weird to me that he just kept going on. But it is what it is. He seemed like he had some anger management issues or something. Something must be going on at home. I don't know. Anyway, we move on.
Maybe his missus burnt his Christmas pudding.
Yeah. We just need Joe to make an allegation about him.
Haven't know anything about his personal or home life, do you, Joe?
I'm going off now.
No comment.
Leave studio.
No comment. But yeah, up to that point, the second yellow, we were brilliant, and then
the substitutions.
Yeah,
Sterling for Keogh, Yates for Bowler, switched to the back three. This was the turning point in the game, wasn't it?
I think the difficulty. I mean, hindsight says that it was clearly the wrong move to make. I don't think you can say that it was the right move to make. At the time, I thought, well, they're getting. At the time, I kind of rationalised it because I thought they were getting a lot of joy on the flanks, and switched to a back five, pushed our fullbacks wider. And sort of we defensively looked quite narrow against their width, and getting an extra man in the back lets the fullbacks play wider. But I think the truth of it was we didn't have a central midfielder on the bench. So as much as we might have wanted to sort of maintain the four, I think there was a real danger in maintaining the four, and one of those four being Carey, who is a cracking player, but he's not exactly the midfielder that you'd necessarily want. Out of all our midfielders, he's probably the last in line to play the defensive midfield kind of role. And I think had he had a Wintle or a Kevin Stewart or even a Matty Virtue or whoever on the bench, he might have kept with the four, with the two banks of four and one up front. But I think he thought, I'll go for the extra man in defence, because that's, in terms of the players I've got on the bench, I can bring on Keogh, who's obviously, to the manner born to play at the heart of the back three. He's played it a lot in his career. And I think it was a case of doing what his bench dictated rather than... and I think, again, in retrospect, taking off both Bowler and Yates sort of meant we didn't really have much in terms of bursting runs from midfield, and we became very, very one-dimensional. So it was the wrong thing, but maybe it was a product of circumstance in his defence.
I think you've nailed that, basically. I think in retrospect, it's easy to say 4-4-1, but like you say, didn't really have the options on the bench, what with the injuries and COVID. Maybe if Callum Connolly was available that day, he could have slot on for Carey, and that's two problems solved.
Do you not think, though, it's too much of a change in the middle of a game, like A, to change the personnel at the back quite considerably, and B, to completely change the way you're playing and your formation?
How long was that? About 20 minutes?
Half an hour. Still half an hour, wasn't it? Half an hour.
I mean, if we defended any deeper at the end, they would have been in that bottom tier where no fans were.
I think for me, I think that I'm still of the mind that I think we probably would have lost or drawn the game if we'd have gone 4-4-1 as well, because I just think when you've got 10 men, you naturally inviting defensive pressure onto yourselves anyway. For spells, you're going to have to take in ways of attacks. You're going to have to naturally sit deeper defensively. And I think that if you've got one out ball, that's all well and good, but then you're going to have, that means that you're going to have to rely on your central midfielders and your wide players to stay high at times as well. And then you're leaving yourselves open. And Huddersfield were already overloading the midfield and opening up a lot of space. I just think either way, I think we're running hard into nothing, because I just don't think we're quite good enough to take on sustained defensive pressure at the moment. I don't think that we can do that for more than 20, 30 minutes. And that's why I'm saying that our best form of defence is attack. And I think it will be until we bring in more reinforcements, to be honest, particularly in midfield.
And I have to say as well, I thought Huddersfield played it well with 11 against 10. They kept calm. They just passed, move, used the width, sort of drew us in, put it out wide, and it was quite machine-like the way they played. They didn't put pressure on themselves. They just passed it around until eventually found the space, and it just sort of felt inevitable.
That's the thing with our defensive structure, is that, like, if a team does that and remains patient, then we do leave gaps at times. Especially when you've got 10 men as well, you've got to be concentrated for the whole time. And as we'll come on to the next game, obviously it was a similar story, and you've got to be against a team like that who like to probe. A bit like the Swansea game, we did that. We played that really well because they were doing a similar thing of probing, waiting for the opening. And when they got the opening, they were clinical with it. And it's a similar case with Huddersfield as well. But as we'll come on to, I thought we probably could have dealt with one, if not both of those, far better.
There was something that I spotted that kind of relates to their winning goal, which I spotted in the first half, and that's how we defend set pieces, namely corners. One of their fellas, I think it might have been Ward, was at the back post and nobody was marking him. And we had 3 players that were just stood at the top left-hand corner of the 6-yard box, the middle of the 6-yard box, and top right of the 6-yard box. And obviously that's zonal marking. And I'm like, why are you not marking anybody?
It's done us all season, this, Joe, to be honest.
I don't think we zonally mark, though, because if you watch a team zonally mark, it's different to what we do. We are just vibes. We don't have a set structure defensively. It's just vibes. Because it's not, if you look at this, because obviously it's the easy thing to throw out that zonal marking's issue, but we're not zonally marking. We're sort of in a mix between the two. We're not really sort of going one way or the other, and you have to, if you're going to zonally mark, you've got to commit to zonally marking completely, and we don't do that. So
I mean,
we don't
their
do
winning
either,
goal,
it's second phase. It's always second phase.
We never pick up the second ball ever.
No,
and it doesn't matter what type of set piece, be it goal kick, a throw in, a corner. We never pick up the second ball. It's absolutely infuriating. But the way we headed the first ball out,
pieces when Calderwood was here as well. So like
the way we headed the first ball out, and then we headed it out again, and it's fallen to one of their lads, and he smashed it through a group of players into the bottom corner. Like, for God's sake!
I noticed on one of the corners at our end, I noticed that Gaz was organising who stood where for defending the corner, and I thought, well, that can't be the ideal organisational head in there, you know. And he genuinely was. He was pointing and he was pulling somebody back, going, "I'll pick it." And I thought, that's not right if your centre forward's doing that.
I think
it's just another string to his bow, of course. To organise the defence as well as everything else.
Played very, very well. We probably would have won if we had 11 men. Huddersfield are no mugs. I think, are they just outside or just inside the playoffs?
Thereabouts.
They went into the playoffs, didn't they, when they played us?
Decent team. Yeah. I think you've just got to concentrate on the performance rather than the result. I think if you get bogged down too much in results, you're not going to have a very happy time being a Blackpool fan at the minute.
We should have been 4-1 up at half time, Joe.
Yeah, we should have,
shouldn't we?
But I mean, the thing is, we're not playing badly. We're not getting battered. And I know everyone's going to go, "Oh, we've only won 1 game in 10." We're playing well. Do you know what I mean? If we're getting battered 4-0 every week, I could understand all the doom and gloom. But people need to, just take a breath. There was always going to be a period of the season when we got promoted that this was going to happen.
But I think there's
sorry,
at the same time I'll go quickly. At the same time, I think there is, there's no need for doom and gloom and predictions that we're going to be, relegated by March or anything. It's, we're decent, but at the same time, we do lack some stuff. We do need to improve certain things.
Absolutely.
The depth is not there. And okay, we've been unlucky with injuries in a certain position, but some of those are inherited injuries from the previous season. Some of those are injuries that we know full well were at risk. We've known all along that Stewart is made of bone china, and we were weak in central midfield. And I think we've got to strengthen certain things. And I think there's always there becomes this sort of thing where it's either you're positive or you're negative. And I think there's truth in both camps. I think there's truth in the positive. We have been playing well. We've picked up Derby, we were shite. We've played the last 3 games. I've enjoyed watching us play despite the fact we've lost. But at the same time, some of the negativity has a ring of truth in it, because we have got weaknesses that I think we do need to address, even if it's not a case of staying up or not, because I think we've probably got enough to stay up. Yeah. We need to keep incrementally improving, and there are elements where we're not good enough, because if we were good enough, we would have got more points out of some of the decent performances that we've had.
That's the annoying thing, that the performances are there, isn't it? And we don't have some of the points we deserve.
That's why I'm positive, because you sort of have this trust, I guess, that those areas that need to be strengthened will probably be strengthened in January. And I think if this was February, it'd be a whole different ball game. But like you say, it's negatives are there, but I think the negatives are there that you can address them. It's not like they're things that we have no control over now till the end of the season. They're things that we can improve, and I think we will improve. So yeah, I think to be honest, the past 2 games I've really enjoyed watching us play, to be honest. Large spells.
And as Alex just said in the comments there, this team has potential with the right investment in January and over the summer, and the club should be on the right track. I mean, that sums it up quite well. Yeah, quite well for me. Sonny Carey's injury was obviously a big factor, and I thought we'd solved that problem midfield position with Sonny Carey's performance, and he goes and fucking breaks his toe. Unbelievable, Jeff.
I think he certainly potentially gives. I mean, and actually 6 weeks is probably less than I thought it could be, because metatarsals can take a long time, can't they?
He's a young man though, isn't he? So
yeah, so 6 to 8 weeks
to heal quicker.
Yeah, that's not so bad. But what he does, I mean, I still don't think it's like, oh right, Carey, brilliant, he's the number 8 now, he'll play every game. But I think what he does is, I don't know whether we'll keep Wintle or not, but just imagining we don't sign anybody in central midfield, which I've got to think we will do, and the squad's exactly as it is. What he does is, knowing that he can play in there, and he can play in there with creativity and on the front foot, that adds a tremendous amount to our options. I think it really does. So I think even though it was a pisser that he got injured, actually, to keep in Joe's vibe of positivity, the fact that he's shown that he can play central midfield and play it well and play in a 4-4-2, I think in the long term, that is a real step forward for our midfield options.
Okay, let's take a quick breather. Then we'll move on to the Middlesbrough match reaction segment of the show. It was a very quick breather.
Wow.
I might split this up into 2 podcasts for the audio listeners out there. Get 2 for the price of 1. Right, Boro yesterday. As we usually do with the match reaction shows, let's go through the lineup, because quite a lot of unhappy people when this dropped on our Twitter feeds. Grimshaw, Sterling, Ekpatetic, Keogh, Gretson, Husband, Connolly, Dougal, Anderson, Yates, and Medine. Who wants to go first on this?
Well, I thought, I just looked at it and thought, what is that? I just couldn't fathom it, because it looked for all the world like it was a formation set up for wing backs. I mean, you've got kind of a really strong double pivot in there, and obviously Keshi floating in front of that, and then
double pivot.
We had two defensive midfielders. I'm trying to impress Sean. And then I was just like, well, where is the wing? Who's going to play wing back? And then I suddenly came to this realization that we were going to see Jimmy Husband on the wing. And I just couldn't conceptualize it. But he had actually mentioned, if you've watched the group chat thing with him and Keogh and Medine, he did actually mention that he started out early in his career as a winger. I think he started at Donny, didn't he? Or he went on loan to Donny. And he said that he played on the wing at Doncaster. So, you know, I was thinking, well, maybe we're going to see a new string to Jimmy's bow. Sartorial elegance and great wing play.
That could be a novel as well. A new string to Jimmy's bow.
Sounds like a chapter in a book.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was not. I wasn't. I mean, the previous lineup, I was absolutely buzzing. I couldn't wait to kick off at Huddersfield. And this, I was like, I can't see how we're going to get the ball to the forwards. I don't see how we're going to get the ball from the back of the pitch to the front of the pitch. How's that going to work? I mean, we can obviously kick it really long, but I don't see how we're going to pass up the pitch. I was not optimistic seeing that lineup.
Sean, on the patient chat group, there was a fair bit of negativity and a lot of people saying, where are the goals going to come from? There's not a lot of creativity. And my personal thoughts were, he's just gone to shut up shop for 60 minutes and then bring Bowler and Lavery on and try and win the game. And I think that was kind of what happened in the game. So what was your thoughts on the lineup when you saw it?
Well, I mean, first of all, I was like, thank fuck we have footballers on a pitch. That was the first thing because, I mean, the noises obviously with it was going to be a lot worse than it ended up actually being. But my second thought was I'm watching Callum Connolly in central midfield again, which again, obviously before the match, I was like, that's not the greatest thing in the world, but it made a lot of sense in terms of the setup to me. It's 3-5-2. You're matching up Chris Wilder's 3-5-2. I think as much as obviously people will think that he's gone to shut up shop, I think that if you're playing a 4-4-2, you're leaving yourselves open to be overloaded, particularly in the fullback areas. You're asking a lot of your wingers to come back and offer defensive support. They'll underlap their centre halves. You saw that they were essentially 3-on-1 at points in wide areas, and they were really looking to overload those areas. And central midfielders were going into those areas as well. And it's a tough system to play against, particularly at how they're essentially the form team in the league. The way that their movement in the central areas as well was really just on point.
They were huge back line as well, and they're really big, strong, physical players.
They're good technical players as well, which really stood out, and that's the difference maker. And that's where I'm kind of like, you know what? At the end of the day, we do need to, as much as we like to go, well, let's just go for all these teams. At the same time, we did need some midfield, particularly with the players being absent as well. I think we needed some midfield stability, and I think that three in the midfield in particular sort of showed that. So I was thinking initially, because he's never, when I've asked him about back threes in the league before, he's kind of said that, well, we probably won't play a back three. We don't really play back threes, but that's why I was thinking perhaps it was need must. But post-match, he did say that even if he'd have had his strongest side available, he would have done the same thing because he thought that it was of that much importance. We did similar with Swansea, sort of matching them up to an extent as well. And it's sometimes you just have to do that. And I think, you know, it's a bit of sort of realization of where we are sometimes. Because if we'd have gone and conceded 3 goals playing a 4-4-2, then we'd have been like, well, there you go. Why didn't we set up more cautiously?
I think we were lucky to be still in the game at half time, Joe, personally. They've had two chances. The first chance they've missed, how he's put that wide, that chance. And obviously there was the Keogh incident where he smashed the ball into his own play and they've gone through 1-on-1. So 2 gilt-edged chances, and I thought Boro were on top for the vast majority of the first half. So I don't think what he did worked.
Make no bones about it. For me, I think they're, along with Coventry, probably the best team to come to Bloomfield Road this season. I thought they passed it around really well. The change since Chris Wilder's come in at Middlesbrough, you can see in such a short amount of time how he's, stamped his authority, his style of play. Absolute chalk and cheese to when we played them at the Riverside. They look a much more sharper, much more confident outfit. as good as Middlesbrough were, and they were good, they were very good. I think you've got to remember we had 12 players out yesterday. Do you know what I mean? We had 12 players out, and we went toe to toe with them, and we nearly got a point. We were seconds away from getting a point. Again, I know it's all if buts and all that nonsense. We played well again for the second game in a row. We deserved a point from that game minimum, and to come away from the game with nothing, it's soul destroying. You hate blaming referees. You don't want to be one of them teams that every time you lose out, the ref. And no, it wasn't. I thought it was equally inept for both teams. What I wanted to mention, the main point with that referee, there was a challenge. I can't remember if it was towards the end of the first half or the beginning of the second. But Callum Connolly, try that again, put my teeth in. Callum Connolly got absolutely wiped out on the touchline. It was very akin to the challenge that Jordan Gabriel got booked and subsequently sent off for at Huddersfield. Not even a free kick, throw in. Where's consistency? That's all you want from referees is consistency.
But I think
it was another part of the game.
I think consistency between two different games is. But I think this is a really important point. Consistency between two different games is something you're never going to get with refs, because refs are human. They're part of the chaos of football. But consistency within a game, which we were talking about before, and that's what that ref
that wasn't there either.
He had none of that. He was, and I think what he was inept. He was just, and the linesman was too. There was 3 times I clearly saw the wrong decision, and it wasn't always against us. They were just mad decisions. There was the most clear corner I've ever seen in my life. A goal kick, and then we kicked it out obviously for a throw to them, and we got the throw, and it was just like, what is this guy? Somebody behind me shouted, is this guy on drugs? Sorry, Joe, over to you.
Mitch, I'll just throw this gag in before Joe. I think he was reffing on vibes.
The one that really got me was again, it's Keshi Anderson. He kept getting fouled over and over and over again. Must have been about 5 or 6 fouls in the first half. Got nothing. And I think towards the end of the first half, he was running for the ball, ran into one of their players, fell over and got a free kick.
We're too honest. We're too honest as a side.
That happened. It was like he's given the one that isn't a foul.
I think it's particularly with Keshi. He rides tackles really well, and that's almost to his downfall and detriment at the moment. I think a lot of the time the referee sort of thinks he's just gliding a tackle, and realistically it's a foul in any given context because he's just carrying on with the ball. We're too honest as a club at the moment. I think we're too honest as a team sometimes. I think that we kind of need to be pricks a bit more because everyone else is on board the prick machine at the moment. So I think we're probably just going to down our tools on the honesty side of things and just go for it now.
I tweeted something about that. I'm sick of, Blackpool. What a credit to the club getting the game on. That's superb. Blackpool. Their fans were brilliant at home. They were really, really good at our place as well. Cheers for the 3 points. No, I want to be twats. I want to be hated. I want to be, you scabby bastards. You didn't deserve to win that game. I'm sick of being nice, Blackpool. I want to be an absolute set of bastards and win every week. I want the James husband that absolutely nailed that player at South.
That is my favourite Blackpool moment post-boycott. There's nothing will ever beat that moment. Ever.
Get into him.
Just as an aside, I have been thinking, it sounds like there's an alien. You know, on the film Alien, when they're going out tracking the alien, it's coming in on them, and they say, I can't see him, and there's a weird noise just like that. And I was just thinking, what the hell's that noise? I thought, is this me? But Joe's just put in our private chat, the washer's on.
Yeah,
sorry. You don't get this on a Sky Sports production.
I thought somebody was making endless cups of tea because it's like this high-pitched, rising, whistling noise.
It's on the final cycle, don't worry. Not long now.
Sean, you could mention like recycling in a different context.
Oh, yeah. There we go. We'll give
so Joe's recycling his clothes at the moment, but Blackpool recycled the game in the second half from going from a team that looked like we were going to get beaten to a team that we were going to win the game.
I disagree with this sentiment that we were getting battered in the first half. I thought
we're not getting battered, but
we controlled the game well when we needed to. We were battling them well in midfield. Like I said, I said beforehand, we lost the game because of 2 lapses of concentration, and we were to be fully concentrated against the Middlesbrough side that is constantly on the move in every position is a very hard thing to do, and I think we did it really well. And I thought we were excellent, to be honest. Throughout the 90 minutes, I thought we were absolutely fine in terms of shape and structure and in terms of keeping ourselves in the game. Because at the end of the day, if we'd have gone forth, I still maintain that if we'd have gone all out attack for 90 minutes, we'd have lost the game regardless. So I think that to manage the game, control it, and then take your moments when they're a bit more laboured is probably the best way to go against a team like that.
I agree with a lot of that, Sean, but just on instinct alone, when they scored, I just couldn't see how on earth we were actually going to get a goal. And I think we did play well in that first half in terms of control, and actually in terms of the thing we've criticised a lot. We won some second balls. We actually kept some pressure on, but we just couldn't really create an actual chance. The only actual chance we created was that one where our adventurous wing-back duo got forward and Dujon crossed it and Jimmy nodded it back across the box and it didn't quite fall. Apart from that, we didn't really... we had lots of sort of, nearly quite, and maybe that ball. And
twice.
Yeah, but not in
that
the,
was
not
after
in the
we
first
did
half.
changes.
All right.
Mitch, I was at the point of tweeting, we're not going to score in the whole of 2022. Continue playing like this before the changes were made. I agree with that.
And when they scored, I just thought
he's got to change it straight away.
He
took it to, I was thinking, and I'm not saying this in hindsight. 55 minutes, I was thinking we have to change this because we've just got no outlet, and we don't look like scoring. And I just knew they were going to score. I could foresee it coming, and on, what was it, 60 minutes? Boro with you. Poor defending again. Sean, you can talk us through this.
Yeah, this was that kind of point that I was making of lapses of concentration. I think that it's very hard to keep tabs on the movement of Middlesbrough in the final third because of that underlapping centre half, particularly. It adds another dimension into the game. You've got central midfielders moving out wide, then you've got wingers coming centrally. It's sort of a mismatch of the way that a general side will attack. So you're kind of losing your markers quite often, but we kind of push out. And then there's three Blackpool players there, and as Isaiah Jones just walks through the middle of them, and not a single person tracks the runner. It should have been James Husband tracking Jones, and Jones did get the run on Husband a few times, which is, to be honest, I just think he looked like an absolutely superb player. So at some point,
I thought he was their man of the match for me. Isaiah Jones was great.
Say him and probably Callum O'Hare are probably the two best players I've seen at Bloomfield Road this season. I think that he was class, and sometimes you are going to lose the man, but I think it was so blatant of a run. I think we should have been doing better to track that, but it's a classy finish from Sporar. I mean, he's on loan from Sporting Lisbon, so bit of context again. It's like sometimes you're just playing it.
Aren't they getting in Connolly from Brighton?
Aaron Connolly from Brighton, yeah.
That's another absolute class signing for a championship.
So it's like when you've got teams that are bringing in players. I mean, they signed Sporar, Sporting Lisbon,
and we bring in Connolly from Fleetwood,
and we're still bringing in League One players at the end of the day. So it's like it's a bit of perspective, but it was a great finish. But yeah, I just think we could have tracked that run, but I didn't expect us to keep up that concentration for 90 minutes. You kind of have to ride your luck sometimes.
And Mitch, infuriatingly, Critchley didn't make the changes that needed to happen until, what was it, 10 minutes later? I was like, what? I struggled to understand what's going through his head, because I was saying, come on, lads, let's keep it tight at 1-0. Let's protect the 1-0 deficit. And I just don't understand. I don't get it, personally, why he does that.
No, not at all. The fella who sits next to me, when I'm not screaming it's Medina in his ear, he's got some quite good, he's got some sound insight. Like I like hearing what he thinks of the game, and he just went to me when Bowler and Lavery, and I went, who for? And he went, not sure, but Gretterson off and Yates or Medine. And then and I went, yeah, probably sounds about right. And we were still waiting for it 12, 13, 14 minutes later, which is weird. And he does this, doesn't he? He does, and it's something I don't want to get into the whole he needs an assistant thing, but it's something he seemed to have got better at when we had Stuart McCall. Now, that's not to say that Critch isn't the mastermind for our success and he isn't the main man and he needs his hand-holding, but maybe he just needs a ex-Scottish international to go...
I'll not you if you don't make a change.
Yeah, to just
I think you're forgetting that I think you're forgetting that Gary Medine nearly scored on the most audacious, definitely meant back post woodwork, off the woodwork and in goals before the substitutions were made. Yeah. So that actually means that we were perfectly fine and it should have been the same.
Well, was that not actually before they scored?
Yeah, it was before
I think that
they scored.
Yeah. But I was going to mention that chance before because, look, clearly Jimmy Husband running down the wing and crossing it to Gary Medine is probably the point that I would expire because it's never going to get any better than that. But I do think there was an element of good fortune in that. It was, it kind of was. It was a bit of a lucky one, and I know Joe's going. We hit the post twice, but certainly the Connolly post hit that was unlucky. That was very much meant, but I'm not entirely sure how much both Jimmy and Gaz were entirely in control of what they were doing there. It was sort of unlucky that it hit the post, but it was also maybe slightly lucky that it hit the post at the same time. And I saw him and Garrity were talking for ages and ages as if they were debating sort of the new constitution of the country or something, as opposed to what sub they were going to make.
They had all those laminated flip boards out and everything, flicking through them. I was just screaming, just fucking make a change.
I think that because you kind of obviously we're not in the position of power, but to give him a little bit of an out, because I agree we were right to make the change, but we should have made it much earlier. But I think that while the system can overload you like that, if you've just not got the midfielders, and if you're looking at Callum Connolly was knackered after about 65 minutes, and you've got no options. You've got to bring on a young lad in Luke Marriott, who I think is a great player, but he's not. It's not the game to throw him in. And it's like you're thinking about that midfield balance. And I think they were struggling with the idea of making the change because they thought if we do, then we're kind of allowing Middlesbrough that attacking emphasis, and they could go and score 2 or 3. But at the end of the day, it gets to it, and they clearly were debating that for about 10, 15 minutes, and then finally went, well, there's 15, 20 minutes left. We're just going to have to do it anyway.
He should have brought Demi Mitchell on at left back sooner.
Can I have a Connolly thing, Gret?
Go on, right. So point 8 in our show notes is Sean has Callum Connolly monologue and we all go and put the bins out and such like whilst he does that.
I can put the washing on the radiator now, can't I?
Might go and get another beer.
Like an advert break for the listeners.
I was on full screen.
Yeah, put me on full screen.
That's me.
You, Christ.
There you go.
I was so happy for Callum Connolly, first of all. I think that I've said before, I think in a back three right centre half is probably his best position. We played a back three and he still didn't get his bloody chance there. He'll get it one day, but Critchley said before, I think it was Huddersfield, when I spoke to him about Callum Connolly, and he said that he's got a knack of getting in the right areas at the right time, and he was really pushing home this attacking emphasis that Callum Connolly has in his game, and I was kind of like, what? We haven't seen any of this in it. We saw moments of it from right back in terms of set pieces, but he really drove the team on in that game, and I thought that his tackling, his timing of everything was superb. His positional sense was great. Even though he was out of breath come 65 minutes onwards, he was still in the right position. And I think that's he was more calmer on the ball, and it was clear that having that extra midfield body in there allowed him to have the confidence to take more risks. I think he worries about taking risks when he's in just the two in midfield. Because it's just something that I don't blame him for, because he probably doesn't have that much confidence in himself. He's not getting much of a look in. But I just, at the end of the day, I think he was class. And I think I do worry. I was thinking about it today, whether he was just good, and because he's not been great in midfield, then it's kind of just, that was why I thought he was class. But I thought generally he was our man of the match. Personally, I thought he was brilliant. And I thought that if you're now, but that doesn't mean he's the answer in central midfield. But I'm essentially going now. He's had one good game in central midfield, and he's had 3 not great games in central midfield. He didn't train all week, and then he went and put in a performance like that. Now, if he does that for the next 2-3 games, then I look at him as a feasible option in that position if he can do the exact same thing going forward.
Maybe Callum Connolly is the football equivalent of John with his intros. So John didn't get any sleep and ended up clearing up sick. Intro, bang. Connolly doesn't train all week, plays like, greatest midfielder of all time. He just needs to not train. That's the answer.
I tell you what, there's one thing I will say. I have to tip my hat to Callum Connolly. I've not been, one of his biggest fans, but I thought he was excellent yesterday. I thought he filled in for Wintle very well. And hey, first corner he took, didn't beat the first man, so he really did take the Wintle mantle up, didn't he?
I was waiting for that. I thought, do you know what it is, though? I've not seen a central midfielder drive like that and show an attacking output like that. I know obviously he didn't score, but he was getting in positions, he was letting shots off. We don't see that often from our holding midfield players. And he
was very unlucky with a few shots that he just managed to get bodies in the way at the last minute.
And he had the confidence to keep doing that. And if you're getting shots off, if it deflects off a body and goes for a corner, you've got a chance. If we keep feeding the balls into him and he's trying to overload, then that's great. But
he had
again,
that deflected shot that was inches wide, Sean, as well. Yeah. If you recall that.
And obviously, he's a threat in the air as well. But I'm not going to go over the top. I thought he was superb, our best player on the pitch in that game. Whether he can do that consistently, I have no idea. But if I've been critical of him in the past, you've got to just say how good that is and how the mentality to do that is superb to me. I think it's brilliant. And Neil Critchley said that obviously that he didn't train all week, but he's saying that he's never come across a player like that. Like his mentality is just, he always wants to play. He always wants to put his all into things. In training, he's like the best trainer and all this, and his attitude's excellent, and his commitment and personality are great. He just seems like the ultimate professional that you want in a team and a squad. And that when you're getting that from these rotation players, it's really nice to see.
Sorry, mate, it's just 2 seconds. Yeah, those diagonals that he was hitting Yates with over the top, they were decent as well. Something we've not been seeing. Anyway, Mitch, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say. Well, I'll make 2 quick points. Number one, he did really well because his first action was to slice one out of play. And I went, fucking Connolly in midfield, for fuck's sake. And he came back from that, which is good. The second thing, I think to bracket him fairly, clearly he's not Pirlo, but I thought he played in the way that when Virtue has had his best games for us and he's driving at the edge of the box and he's cracking shots off, which, Virtue is hardly Pirlo, but he's had some good games for us where he's done that. That's what Connolly brought. And it was kind of like, you think, yeah, actually, unless we're at Wembley and Kenny's hitting one with his left and one with his right, I can't remember the last time we really saw a midfielder doing that. Grant Ward has a shot every now and again, but we're very, very shot shy. And I thought he really did do himself credit, and I would agree. And I too have slated him.
As have we all, Mitch. Leggy League One donkey.
Again, he obviously had that ringing in his ears. And
Exactly. So our goal has come quite fortuitously, a defensive mix-up, but Lavery's there he's great at those little finishes, isn't he? When he's just quickest to react and just knocked in. I think that's happened a few times. Pandemonium in the home ends, and just as with...
Do we have to relive this? Do we really?
Yeah.
Let's cut this off now, please.
We're going to have to. Just as it's died down, who's to blame for this goal? Who wants to come in first?
Demi.
Jimmy Husband or Demi Mitchell, or a bit of both?
Both.
Demi.
I think Demi Mitchell. I'm all like the total football train, but that is woeful decision making at a vital moment in a game. But like Connor made a good point, and we'll make the point. It seems he wasn't on here, that it's nice to see that we picked up the ball. We had this desire to go and win the game then straight away after we kicked off, and we wanted that mentality. But that sort of play there, when you clearly know that you're... First of all, I thought it was a poor pass from Husband to pass it him initially, because the run, you could see already that Isaiah Jones was already tracking down Mitchell, but Mitchell just has to get rid. He just has to get rid. It's 30, 40 seconds to go. It's just naive. And we've got a couple of people in the team that are poor decision makers generally at the moment, and that is costing us, and that's cost us over the past 2 games, has been general decision making, and you can't coach that to an extent. I don't think you can coach that. You have to have that idea already as a professional footballer of when is the right and wrong time to do things, and that was the wrong time to do that. But once he then lost the ball and Isaiah Jones was tracking down, he's still got 15, 20 yards to go until he's in the box. And James Husband's kind of dallying whether to go and commit to Jones or to track the run of Watmore. And in the end, he does neither. And at that point in time, with the quality that they've shown throughout the game, you just have to commit, and you just have to trust your centre-half. He's going to cut across and track the run of Watmore. And I don't think he trusted that the centre-half was going to get back. And as it turns out, he didn't. But I think that you've got to just have that trust there. And I don't think perhaps we had that trust, and we were a bit disjointed because we didn't expect the phase of play to happen from Mitchell. But I think it's a bit of both, but it's very much mainly Dimitri Mitchell.
Joe, over to you. 4 points we've thrown away through bad decision making, some may say.
Yeah, bad decision making / bad luck, call it what you will. I think it's a combination of both. I still maintain in this 1 win in 10 run that we're playing good football. I think we've been very, very unlucky in a lot of games. Some of it maybe to do with ourselves and shooting ourselves in the foot, but just got to keep going. We're not playing bad. Our luck's got to change eventually. No need to get too down. Don't think we're in any danger of getting relegated, mainly because Derby have got so many points taken off them. It'd take a monumental effort just for them to finish third bottom, let alone get out of it. And as we saw the other day, Peterborough, not the greatest team. I think they've only won 1 away game all season. If they maintain that kind of form away from home, even if they have a superb home record, they're going to be in trouble. And Barnsley don't look very clever either. So I'm not panicking at all. It's frustrating what we're going through at the minute. We just got to keep our chins up and dust ourselves down and go again.
Mitch, we'll come to you finally. What was your thoughts on the goal, the finger of blame? Who's it pointing at from your point of view? And secondly, what was it like in the south? Because I know you were near the Middlesbrough fans. I personally,
Sean.
Well, yeah. When it went in, I curled up in a ball like a hedgehog does when it's being attacked. I was not my head in my hands. My hands were over my head, and I curled up in a ball and knelt on the floor in utter disbelief at what had just happened. I've never reacted like that at a game before.
Oh, I did something very similar. I ended up sort of on my knees and sort of flailed kind of just at the air because the 2 fellas who were sat next to me had gone. The weird people that leave on 83 minutes. And so I had a free, and I was kind of like Basil Fawlty in the air, just in agony. The goal, it was...
I'd love to, just an aside, I'd love to see a video of various people's reaction to that goal. That would be quite funny.
The goal, look, I don't want this to sound like I'm having a go at Dimmy, because he's a player I like. He's a player that I'm not necessarily convinced is the long-term future of the club. You know, if we're going to win the Champions League in the next 3 years, I'm not necessarily convinced that Mitchell's going to be first choice in that lineup. But he tries his arse off. He gets stuck in. He's not without his qualities. But I think it says a story that we signed him as a left back, and we now have 3 left backs, none of which are him, and that he plays in a completely different position on the other side of the pitch, about as far away from the defence as you can get him without being a striker. Because I have rarely seen a worse defensive fullback than him in Tangerine. When he played at fullback for us, he was great going forward. We've certainly had worse fullbacks overall because we've had players that couldn't defend or go forward, but he just couldn't defend. He just could not deal with it. His decision making was absolutely abysmal. And I think I'm a bit like I am with Gary Medine, with Jimmy Husband, is I'm a bit unreasonable in terms of it. I agree with Sean that he got caught in 2 minds totally, and his defending was neither fish nor fowl. He didn't really influence the situation. But I don't think the pass out was poor at all. I think Mitchell had about 3 options. He could have gone back to Husband. He could have gone back to Grimshaw. He could have belted it. He could have knocked it off the player for a throw-in. I just thought it was just a clear example of why he doesn't play in defence anymore, because he just can't be trusted to do it. And it was a complete freak that he was there, because he'd been brought on to add to the attacking. And then we scored, and then it's like, shit, move everybody around. Mitchell's at left back now, and it's one of those things. And it was absolutely horrendous.
It was hell on earth. And I think that, I mean, I'd done my attempts to limit my celebrations at the moment, obviously. That goal when Lavery scored, it's kind of like a fist bump, kind of like a bit giddy. Probably people could see that I'd celebrated that. And very quickly, I regret that decision as tens of Middlesbrough fans piled into my face and across the press box, just randomly streaking their way along in sheer pandemonium. And for a good half hour afterwards, as I continued to change the title of my article 3 times in 30 seconds because of the various events that had happened, these people could see exactly what I was typing in and would continue to lambast me for a good 20, 30 minutes post-match. So that was the lowest point, I think, in a long time. And it was like, no England fans will remember this because they don't care about this game, but Scotland, Lee Griffiths scored 2 free kicks at Hampden under Gordon Strachan against England, and we were 2-1 up in the fucking last minute, and Stuart Armstrong should have cleared the ball, and he didn't. And he got dispossessed, and Harry Kane scored in the last minute to equalise in a qualifier. And that is how I felt twice now. And that just brought it all back. And I could not speak to anyone for about half an hour after that game. It was horrible.
Be a bit remiss to not mention the Boro fans. Fair play to them. They travelled in great numbers, didn't they? 3,000 plus. And it was, result aside, it was a great evening's entertainment. I thought it was a really good football match, wasn't it? It had high drama, great atmosphere, and it was a good advert for football in general, I think. So
both the games we've discussed have been. Sorry,
go on.
I was just going to say, I've said it, both the games we've discussed have been actually brilliant spectacles. On the way out of Huddersfield, I heard one of them say, I tell you what, lad, if there'd been a neutral today, you'd have had your money's worth, wouldn't they? It's had everything, that. And I couldn't disagree with him, you know.
Now let's have a few absolute boring 1-0 wins.
Well, Joe, what was your tortoise analogy that you've reeled out on air a couple of times?
Yeah, it's get off. It's we are the tortoise. We hibernate during winter, and just for a few brief moments, like started like we were waking up, but nah, sack it, back to sleep.
Well, put it in perspective. This time last year, we were losing at Bristol Rovers, and that was an awful performance. That was horrendous. Yeah. You know, that was a year ago.
Weren't long ago that we were getting beat by Shrewsbury Town at home. So
having to watch an iFollow.
Yeah, I could very much deal with losing to a very decent Middlesbrough team 2-1, even in the manner that it happened.
I do like seeing fans invading pitches, and it pains me to say I do like things like that. I put that clown in the yellow top though, ran on straight away and fell over in front of everyone. Got back up, did a big circuit, and then after the game as well, they just got let back in.
I did find it funny that all the Boro fans were like being all. So there was an aggro spell and they threw something on the pitch, whatever. And I watched as like in front of me, there was about 7 police officers with these evidence collector things again, and they were too busy filming the North Stand to bother with the 3,000 Boro fans that were actually the ones that were causing any problems in the ground. So if that doesn't sum up anything about what we've had this season, I don't know what does.
I'm sure a few Blackpool fans will probably get banning orders for the seats that were smashed in the East Stand last night.
It's all us.
I think I know what sound effect to play now.
There we go. Should we do some marks for last night then?
Yeah, right. This is going to be the quickest mark section ever because I'm going to watch the last hour of the Darks because I'm really into that at the moment. Let's get up on the screen then. Right, guys, remember, fastest ever player scores. Let's go, Mitch. Dan Grimshaw.
7+.
Why?
You want why?
That's not quick.
Very quick why.
Right, yeah, a couple of good saves. I thought maybe one of the goals he got a bit tangled up with Marvin, but didn't really do too much wrong. Kicking was better than it was at Huddersfield.
Saved the one-on-one, kept us in the game.
Yeah, he did. Maybe 8.
Give him an 8.
Yeah.
Who's on Starling, Joe?
7-, decent defensively, didn't offer much going forward.
Yeah, terrible. He's very right-footed, I noticed. No left foot. Anyway, Joe, Marvin at Potato. Sean, Big Marv.
8+, cracking block in the first half, and just generally didn't. Well, I mean, he could have probably, like I said in the second goal, to be fair. Actually, I'm going to go down now. 8- because he should have probably covered a cross for James Husband so that James Husband could go out to Isaiah Jones for the winner, but that's probably a bit harsh. So, yeah, 8-.
Nearly cost a goal by smashing the ball against his own defender. Take it back to 7+.
That was Keogh that did the thing where he. You're about the one
Sorry,
where he went
Keogh,
through
that's
goal.
what I meant. No,
Yeah.
My brain's jumped ahead. Tricky Dicky.
He did have a completely bonkers run where he lost it, though. So
but that's fun. That's...
Tricky Dicky Mitch.
Tricky Dicky was a fun factory. It was a bit of a shaky performance by our Richard. 7-. I thought it wasn't his greatest performance in Tangerine.
Should have paid for a taxi. Should have paid for a taxi. The song that rang out from the East Stand, thought was quite funny. Viking Joe.
7-. He did okay. In the style of the 1995 Gazette ratings.
Jimmy Husband, Sean.
Yeah, no comment on that last thing. I'd probably say 7+ because I thought he was good going forward, but he should have done better to track the runner on the first. So yeah, let's go 7+ because he did. I thought he was a lot better than I thought he would be in that wing back role.
He's a winger, really. Connolly, good. 8+. Drove
9.
forward like everything Sean said. 8+. I thought he's
9.
I'm going for 8+. I think I feel like 9. Oh, go on, have a 9, Sean. He'll never have a 9.
The FPRS system has been kicked out of the water there. Kenny Dougal, Joe, thought he was very good yesterday, personally.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 7+. Actually, I'm going to make it a 7. He's like a reverse Samson.
What?
He needs his blonde hair back. That's where the source of his powers is.
See, I thought Dukes was absolutely magnificent yesterday.
I did. Yeah, I thought he was really good yesterday.
Oh, I didn't. This isn't quick. Carry on.
Okay, fair enough. Keshi, Sean.
10.
8. He road tackles very well. He road tackles very well. He's link-up play. I think he has a real good understanding with Gary Medine as well, which is really helpful. So I'll go with an 8.
Joey 8's Mitch.
He had a good He was probably the most likely player in the first half. He was sort of fizzing around and playing nicely deep, but he never really managed to quite get on the end of anything, which was frustrating. Thought he played quite well without really having the chance or making the impact. So 8-, 7+, 8-. I don't know. 7+.
Who's got Medine, Joe?
7+. Thought he held the ball up pretty well, and he hit the post. Unlucky.
It's phenomenal. Oh, shout out to Luke Marriott. Great to see him on the bench. He looked a class above in all the youth games. That was brilliant. And also Josh Bowler, final third quality, third game running. That's really important as well.
Critch rating, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of implied some criticism of him in the lineup, but I don't think he had a lot of choice about what he did. And I agree that it sort of worked, matching up Boro at the cost of our creativity. Dithered on the substitutions though, so I'm going to give him a 6+.
I'd give him a 5 personally for today. Joe, your score?
Yeah, I agree with Mitch. 6+.
8 from me. Because I think it was fine. I think for 2 lapses of concentration, we'd have just beaten the form side in the league 1-0. So I'd go with an 8.
Okay, fair enough. All right, just to close out the show, we're going to do a bit on the EFL and COVID. Warning, this may be a monologue. So I was against talking about this, but Sean and Joe, I want a bit of this. So
yeah,
get this out there because I'm going to want to watch the dart. So go on, away you go.
I just wanted to read Critchley's what he said about the EFL because I've never seen him that angry before. It was brilliant. And I know Joe's put in the podcast chat the half Venom, half Critchley picture, which I think is great. And I just thought that it's clear that we're playing a different ball game to a lot of other teams in the division, clearly, when it comes to the rules and squad sizes and things like that. He said, when I asked him about it, he said, how long have you got? He said the EFL hide behind certain statements and repeat them, but then games just get called off and they say there's going to be sanctions and then there never is any. He was speaking about the Rochdale game when we got called off Boxing Day last year where they were investigating nothing, basically got a fine, and that was it when they basically bottled playing the game. It just baffles me. It really baffles me what's happening at the moment. When they're saying that certain players within our squad are eligible who are not in the 25-man squad, then I'm thinking, well, that must be the case across the country then. I know for a fact clubs have got bigger squads than us. You only have to have played 1 minute of a league game, not just for your parent club, but for anyone to be eligible. Well, some of these clubs carry big academies who've got players who have played minutes, yet they've had games off. They must have some outbreak of COVID, that's for certain. I think that pretty much sums up really where we are at the moment. And it's whether, I guess the discussion point is, should we just be pricks?
No, I think it's absolutely disgusting at the moment that we're debating whether or not we should play football matches while we've got players fit and ready to go. I don't give a toss what other clubs are doing. And I think, frankly, it shows what a cynical mess football has become when people are talking about the tactics and strategy of not playing a game like it's some part of it's just bullshit. The bare minimum you do is you turn up and you play the game on the date that comes out on the fixture list. And I frankly wouldn't, obviously reaches a point when the under 15s are playing where you have to go, no, you can't play because it's got ludicrous.
Mitch wants 8-year-olds in.
but look, we had last night, we had a squad of 18, we had 17 players who played semi regularly this season and were in the squad. Luke Marriott was the only player who was sort of readied for that game. And, it's not that important. It's football. It's not that bloody important that we should be pissing about with whether you play or not. And frankly, I have no time for the view that we shouldn't. None.
Joe, do you want to close this out?
I agree with everything that's been said. One thing before we go, I did want to just read out a few stats from this calendar year. I will make it brief so you can see your arrows. I know you love the arrows.
I think pricks have been mentioned a lot this evening, haven't they? So go and chuck some pricks.
This is Blackpool's 2021 record in the league only. I've not bothered with the cups because that would make things not
this.
good. Because we don't, yeah, exactly. We don't do well in cups, so start that off. Right, played 55, won 26, drew 15, lost 14, scoring 69, nice, and against 52, giving us a win percentage of 47.2%, loss percentage of 27.2%. I'm going to open it up to our biggest win and biggest loss. Any guesses for our biggest win of the calendar year?
Was Wigan in this calendar year?
It was indeed.
Yeah, Wigan.
That was also the
Rob Actor masterclass.
I was going to say the Gary Vadine 13 aerial.
And any guesses for our biggest loss? It was the same score, so you can pick one of the two teams.
5-0.
Do you mean as in it was 5-0?
3-0?
No, our biggest loss of the season.
Oh, okay, sorry. Luton
3-0
and
Huddersfield.
Huddersfield.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
3-0 at home.
Get rid of that from my memory.
So yeah, just a few interesting stats. I think, despite the way it's ended, I think it's been a very successful 2021, and more the same next year, both on and off the field.
I think the thing to keep in your memory, as Mitch said, was think back to this time a year ago, getting dicked by Bristol Rovers away, who were terrible and went on to get relegated, and look at them and look at us, and we're on, 30 points? I think we'd all taken that, wouldn't we, in the Championship?
Absolutely.
I'm sure Stanley would have bit someone's hands off, Joe.
Yeah, he's a bit agitated today. Him and Frank don't really get on. Bit of beef.
Is Stanley a bit angry because Frank's eating his beef? Is that why there's beef?
Could be.
That is awful, Patter John. End the podcast now, please.
Yeah, I think we should. Instead of into an Alan Partridge episode. Right, everybody, thanks for joining us on the stream this evening. We'll get this out as an audio pod as soon as I get a chance tomorrow. Please do like and subscribe to the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, be appreciated. What are you all laughing at?
Well, I'm laughing at myself trying to think of dog food based puns.
Right,
I was going to say something like "see you later, pal," or "chum," or something like that.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Up the
Up the